Hello and welcome to the Advanced Age Role-Playing Gamers podcast. This is another silver alert from GenCon 2024. Yeah, that's the joke.
There you go.
And we pounded into the ground to make sure that everybody laughs.
Into submission.
Of course. So I have the privilege of speaking to Matt Forbeck, who's a prolific writer.
A lot of things.
So for folks that might not know your name, can you give us a run through of things that you might be known for?
Sure. I mean, my name is Matt Forbeck. I've been doing game design for about 35 years professionally. I've worked for TSR, Games Workshop, Wizards of the Coast. I've written 35 some novels, done more than a couple hundred games. I lost count a long time ago. I ran a company called Pinnacle Entertainment Group, which did Deadlands and Brave New World and a bunch of other stuff. I was one of the founders of the company. We quit doing that when we started having kids. That's my eldest over there. And, oh, thank you. And he is now my co-writer in a lot of ways, actually. He's actually coming into the family business. So we just did a World of Warcraft book that came out from Dark Horse Comics on the 16th. And our main thing we have that just came out right now is the X-Men source book for the Marvel Multiverse game, of which I'm the lead writer and designer.
So some of our friends who are also on our podcast got to play the Marvel Multiverse game with another podcast.
Oh, okay, cool.
And it was amazing. And just only notes I have is Iceman needs to be like toned down a bit because he was just way too brutal.
Yeah, sometimes the powers, especially if you put them in the hands of a creative character, I mean, they're very tough. In fact, in the X-Men book, we have this thing called narrative powers, where we look at it and say, man, there's no way that this is not abusable in so many dozens of different ways. So we make them something that's less easy. It's defined by how you talk about it and usually used by the narrator, which is what we call our game master, right? Okay. So the narrator can control these characters, but putting them in a game is just not fair to the other players a lot of the time, because if you're playing a rank 3 character, this guy comes up and, like, Madrox's the multiple man, right? He can show up and just make multiple duplicates of himself very easily. So suddenly, instead of having one guy you're fighting 20 guys. It gets broken pretty quickly. Yeah. So instead, we put that in the hands of the narrator, who we trust not to be too mean to the players. Well, you never know. But it's good fun. Exactly.
Just to back up a bit, the Marvel Multiverse role-playing game, we started off probably with, as far as superhero TTRPGs, Champions was our first. We did the Phase Rip Marvel game back in the day, which was super fun. What was the direction for design of this iteration?
I played all those games. I played Champions. My first big RPG book I wrote all by myself was Western Hero, which was a Champion supplement, right? And I played every one of those games. I used to, when I was a kid, I would run around in college. I would do DC Heroes demos all around Chicago and Milwaukee, back to the original logarithmic game that Greg Gordon designed for them. Champions, I just loved all these different games I played over and over. Phase Rip, I actually used to run run games for the RPGA, the Role Playing Gamers Association. So Jeff Grubb and Steve Winter would show up with these dot matrix printed copies of these adventures and have me run them when I was like 16 to 18 years old at GenCon. I would run 40 hours of events for GenCon just for fun, right?
That's amazing. I'm insanely jealous of past you. That sounds. But yeah, so what are the things that you've taken from those old experiences and brought into and expanded on and used to build this game?
Right. I mean, you take everything you do in your life, you actually build into each game that you do, right? You try to apply what you're looking for. What I try to do is think, okay, who is this game for first, right? Who is it for? Like, for instance, I worked on the Margaret Weiss edition of the game too, right? And it was a really great game, very wonderful for storytelling, But I think it was for more sophisticated role players, right? People have been doing it a while, or adults or whatever. And we wanted to be able to sell to, anywhere from age 10 and up. Very simple. So we actually were shooting for basically D&D players this time, right? At this point in the world, the number of people who are interested in role playing games who have not played Dungeons and Dragons is pretty small.
Yeah.
Right. So we wanted to make something that wasn't a D&D clone, certainly not a D20 game at all, right? Because that doesn't fit superheroes at all. But something that shared a lot of the same vocabulary. So that when you sat down, you're like, oh, I roll for initiative. I'm doing action checks, all this kind of stuff. So if you played these games before, or have any familiarity with them, even as video games, you're going to already understand the vocabulary. We're not asking you to absorb something new to wrap your head around. And I think it's done pretty well that way. So we were shooting for D&D players, essentially, because this is the most popular role-playing game of all time. and one of my favorites as well. And then also players who are we call them RPG curious, right? So like players are like, I would like to play a role playing game, but man, pointy ears and wands and all that and robes, that's too geeky for me. But spandex and masks,
Yeah, so totally different. Yeah, Marvel's a great property to kind of lure some of those folks in. So
it really is. Marvel is currently the most popular brand in the entire world, right? It actually beats out Disney. So that's great having that kind of power behind you too. I mean, it's also a lot of responsibility, like, because you have all these fans going, what about this? And you're like, and you go, well, I just can't screw this up. But if you live in fear, if you design from a place of fear where you're worried about screwing things up, then you're not having fun with it. I think that shows in what you do. You have to enjoy what you're doing. I was just playing a 2-hour demo in here with a bunch of players, brand new players who'd never played the game before. We had a blast. Right? It's not about whether or not I'm going to screw stuff up. It's about whether or not I can give people the tools to have fun in their own games and their own tables.
Yeah, that's really amazing. I actually heard the fear and reverence take several times during the show so far, talking to other folks. So you've got a different approach to that.
I don't scare easy, but I've been doing this for 35 years professionally too. Ever since I got out of college back in 1989. So. I've got so many of these under my belt and having worked on previous Marvel games, I wrote 2 editions of the Marvel Encyclopedia. I wrote an Avengers Encyclopedia. Yeah. I've worked on Marvel MMOs doing dialogue. I'm really familiar with the property, right? There's very few people who know it better than I do. So that's not bragging. It's just a matter of me having been doing this for decades at this point. So when they were looking for a designer, the guy who was the publisher of Marvel at the time was a guy named John Nee. And he had actually hired me to do the design for the Wildstorms collectible card game back in the mid-90s when Wildstorm was Jim Lee's division of Image Comics. And, Jim went on to become the chief creative officer of DC Comics. He's an amazing artist, legend. He actually just entered the Hall of Fame at the Comic-Con last week. And then John went on to become the publisher of Marvel Comics. I'm like, wow, just what a great office that was. And so John's ready to do a role-playing game with Marvel. He's like, you're my choice. Come here. I'm like, because we had a long history and obviously I had done all this stuff for Marvel over the years. I'm not afraid of it, but it's a very daunting task. It's a challenge, but I like challenges, right? I do the stuff creatively for fun, but if you run out of challenges, it becomes boring. And I don't think you want to be a bored creator, right?
No, that sounds terrible.
No, I mean, go into selling insurance or driving pizzas or whatever else, whatever you would have to do otherwise. I don't work. There's honor in all work. You do what you do to make a living and feed yourself and your family and the people you care about. I've been really lucky and fortunate, and I really do feel that way about the fact I've been able to do this as a career for 35 years. It stuns me to this day that I've been able to make a living at it. I have 5 kids too that my wife and I helped put through college. So it's been a long road and a lot of fun though.
That sounds amazing. I think by now most people that watch us probably have an idea of they've heard about the dice mechanic, but if you could just do a brief refresher on that.
Sure. The game uses something called the D616 system, which is essentially you roll 3d6 and you add that to whatever ability you happen to be using. The abilities are melee agility, resilience, vigilance, ego, and logic, the first letters of which each spell Marvel, right? So that makes it easy. And if the dice are a little special, but you can use them. You can buy the official ones, but you can raid your Yahtzee box or a couple of old Monopoly. That's the best use of Monopoly for anybody ever. I have a long rant about Monopoly. But you just have to make sure that one of the dice is either an off color, or you marked it up with a Sharpie or whatever. That becomes your Marvel die. And that Marvel die, if you roll a 1 on it, the 1 counts as a 6, and then you've got a critical hit of some sort that happens, right? So suddenly you get double damage, and if you're using a power, then that power fires off a special effect called a fantastic result. So if you're like Cyclops and you're shooting somebody with your optic blast, right? With your ruby red visor, you hit somebody, you get a critical, you get double damage, and you blind your opponent for 1 round, right? So in every power's got that kind of stuff. If it's an active power that you're using as opposed to a permanent power like wall crawling or whatever, or healing factor. So you're actually rolling dice. If you roll dice and you can get a fantastic result, there's some kind of fantastic power that comes along with it, or some kind of Benny. It's a lot of fun.
Listening to our friends play, which I'll put a link to that. It was really super entertaining and led to some really wild results for the scenario. They did the attack on New York type scenario.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
There's a really neat thing with the dice that we don't actually spell out in the rule book, right? The neat thing about it is that it's a 1-hit to roll and damage system, right? So you roll the dice, you see if you meet your opponent's defense score and whatever ability you're doing. Like if it's melee, it's a melee defense score. Meet or beat that number. And then you take your Marvel die and you multiply that by your rank, which is 1 to 6. And then you add whatever ability you're using. So it's usually, 6 to, whatever the 36 plus your ability. But if you get double damage, that gets really high. The neat thing about that is that if you're like Spider-Man trying to punch out Thanos, you got to roll really high. He's got a very high defense, right? It's like, oh my God, I have to put everything I have in this one punch, which means that your Marvel die, which is also your damage die, tends to be higher. So when you hit somebody and you get that really big Marvel, you get the fantastic result, then you get that double damage. It feels like you just landed that blockbuster blow. As opposed to like, much as I love D&D, I find that to be frustrating if you're playing like, I backstabbed the dragon, I finally got that critical hit, I'm going to do double damage, I roll and I got a 2.
Yeah, that's sad.
It's just frustrating. And so we wanted to make something that felt like a Marvel big screen blockbuster battle, right? No.
And that seems to be the challenge, because you want, when you're playing these games, whether it's a fantasy game or a superhero game, you want, and especially superhero, you want to feel amazing, fantastic, all those ultimate, all those things.
All the other adjectives.
All the other adjectives. So I was a huge X-Men collector when I was in high school. And so that's very near and dear to my heart. There's my favorite franchise. And you have a new supplement.
We do. We have the X-Men expansion that just came out. I wrote a good chunk of it. We had Elisa Teague, B. Dave Walters, Jesse Scoble, and Devinder Thierra actually help us out with it too during various chapters. And my son Marty, who's right over there, is actually my co-designer in a lot of ways. He writes all the profiles for the game and actually wrote the Exiles chapter for the book. He's really come an amazing way as doing it as game design. So it's kind of now a family business, which is really kind of fun. The new book came out. It's got 50 some pages of rules in it, like 52, 58, something like that. And a whole bunch of new characters, like 85 new profiles, and different ways to play the game. It's very team-based. The X-Men are all about teams, right? Yeah. Are you going to be on the X-Men team, X-Force, X-Factor, whatever the hell you happen to be interested in? And so we teach you more about forming teams, doing new team maneuvers, all this kind of stuff, and focus on that. We're also working on the Spider-Verse book, which is coming out next spring. That's the one we're working on currently. And that's been announced, so I can talk about it. That was more about doing like supporting cast and hacking gadgets and stuff like that. The stuff that Spider-Man adventures tend to be about, because he's usually a solo hero, but then sometimes he brings together lots of friends. And often he's like protecting Aunt May and Mary Jane and all his other friends and family, even J. Jonah Jameson, right? So, even though he wants pictures of Spider-Man, no matter what you do.
I mean, I watched Spider-Man and Friends. There was Firestar and Iceman, and those are good times. Yeah. So I loved all this Marvel stuff. I saw you've done a lot. Was it Endless Quests?
Yep, I wrote the last 6 Endless Quest books. Actually, here at the show, we have Rose Estes I brought in for the 50 Years of D&D panels. They set me up doing a slate of 6 different panels here at the show. And Rose is going to come to GenCon for the first time in like 30 years, right? And so actually later today, I think 4 o'clock is when I'm going to run my first panel with her. So
wow.
She's amazing, right? She's the lady. She actually wrote the first D&D fiction that wasn't written by Gary Gygax. And it was the Endless Quest books, which basically pick-a-path adventures that you wander through. And I got hired down to write 6 of them it was Candlewick and Kings Road Publishing a couple years ago, and we did 6 of them full color. They were a lot of fun to work on too.
Yeah, of course, that's something I did when I was a kid, and I had no idea that they still existed, so I was pretty excited to see that that's still a thing. This was fun. You're just sitting in your room, and you got some time, and you don't want to watch TV. That's great. Now, we talked to Paizo yesterday, and their union just won the Diana Jones Award.
True.
And of course, I read that you've been involved with the Diana Jones Award for quite a while now. Can you, for folks that aren't familiar with the Diana Jones Award, can you give us a short history and background and what it's all about?
Sure. The Diana Jones Award was founded by a guy named James Wallace. And he got a bunch of us who was RPG designers and board game designers, whatever, card game designers. There's like 12 of us on the initial mailing list. And I was one of the guys who was in the initial group too. And he basically had a pub trivia trophy that used to pass back and forth between Games Workshop and TSR UK. And it's called the Diana Jones Award because when the TSR UK guys all got laid off, they burned a copy of the Indiana Jones role-playing game. And the only part of the logo that was left said Diana Jones. And they took that and encased it in a plexiglass pyramid, put it on a wood base, and they made that into a trophy that they traded back and forth for pub trivia. And then it got lost for several years, just like many things with Indiana Jones happened to be done. And it showed up with James. He's like, let's give this out as an award. And we just vote on what we think the coolest thing in gaming was that year, the most excellent thing in gaming. And the first year was Peter Atkinson. It's gone to things like Irish Gaming Convention, charity auctions, other game designers, other games even. But a lot of times we try to reward things that there aren't awards for, right? Like, who else is going to give an award to a gaming union, right? It's and other ones were like the other nominees were like Adepticon, Amy Bio, TTRPGs for trans rights for Florida. There's 5 of them. I forget the other one, but they're all really talented, amazing people doing incredible things. So we wanted to focus on that. But so we give it out different every year. The first year it happened to be my 33rd birthday was on GenCon Saturday. It was my 20th GenCon I'd gone to a row. And so I held a party. And James gave out the award at the party. And it went so well, everybody says, we should do this every year. And so the next year, we decided to start doing it on Wednesday nights, just before GenCon. I passed around a hat, essentially, to a bunch of the game companies and other designers. And we raised, a few $1,000s to buy beer for each other.
Okay.
Right? And we have this party. We have a great time with it. We had like 400 or 500 people show up this year. And then about 4 years ago, we started something called the Emerging Designer Program, too, which I think was Ken Height's idea originally. And then Camden Wright and Aaron Trammell have run with it since then. And the idea is that we're bringing in people, often marginalized people who are in the first 4 years of their design career, and bring them in from around the world. So we've flown in people from China and the UK and other places, even America if we have to. It's okay. We like Americans too. But we're trying to bring in people that otherwise wouldn't normally have a chance to go to GenCon, right? Or maybe it's their first GenCon. And so we fly them in, we pay for their flight, we give them a room, we give them a badge, we give them an honorarium, we give them a prize package of all sorts of different software and other things they can use to become better game designers, and try to help kick their career up to the next notch. Then we introduce them around the entire party, put them up on stage. And actually here at the show, I think it's in Hall C or Hall H, next to the Games Workshop mini painting booth, you can go and play these games to the people here at the show too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's really been a lot of fun. And due to that, we're now a 501c3, a nonprofit, which means I'm now the president of a registered charity, which is not someplace I thought life would ever take me, to be honest with you.
You just roll the dice and you go where they take you. So that's beautiful. So and for this year's,
I do want to say one other thing. Many thanks to the Bundle of Holding, Alan and Beth. Fantastic people. They were the people that stepped up and said, if you guys become a 501c3, we can make you one of our registered our chosen charities for this. And they donate tens of thousands of dollars to this thing every year to help get these emerging designer programs out there. They're fantastic people. They're basically like the Humble Bundle, but for TTRPGs. Okay. And I helped them set it up 10 years ago or whatever it was. Good friends of mine and fantastic people. So support them if you can.
I already have. So.
There you go. I know. I love them. I should give them everything. They're fantastic.
Yeah. And with this year's award, do you want to? Is there a process you go through, or you just talk about it among is it 12 of you?
There's not like 70 of us, but probably only like 30 or 40 active voting members, right?
Okay.
And what we do is we're on Slack. It used to be a mailing list. And we all get together and say, what do you think the coolest thing was in gaming this year? And then we whittle it down to whatever we think like there might be a nominees list that's like 30 different things, maybe 20, whatever. And then because some people say, oh yeah, you're right, that's what I want to back. Right, you can back more than one thing, right? And then we do what do they call it? Single runoff voting or automatic instant runoff voting. So you rank your choices, and then we have a list of usually 4 to 6 finalists, right? And those finalists, then we do another round of voting a few weeks later after we've all had some chances to explore those finalists in more depth, do a little bit more discussion about them, and then vote on that. And then that becomes the winner of the award.
That's great. So
it's very simple.
Yeah. So thanks for doing that and keeping that flame going. I hope this is something that keeps going as long as as long as we're around to play games.
It's been 24 years now. We started in 2001. So again, it's like it started out as a bunch of friends on a mailing list, and now it's become this massive party, and people pay attention to us. And that's one of the reasons we decided to take the attention we had toward the Emerging Designer Program to try to do some active good with it, as opposed to just celebrating one thing at a time, but bring in individuals that we could help out.
I mean, that's beautiful. That's what it's all about. Is if you're getting the attention, and then you can use that to help some other folks.
Exactly. Well, we're all gamers, right? We all like to play games. Even the guys who've been doing this, the people who've been doing this for decades. We all start out as players, and we still come here and play games, right? But there's one of the things I love about the gaming industry, because I also work in video games and comic books and novels and everything else. There's often this line between fans and pros, right? But in the gaming industry, it's really, really blurry, right? I mean, every time you sit down at a table and come up with a new rule for something, you're becoming a designer, right? And that's how all game designers start out. It's house ruling, everything else. And then you move into doing all the other stuff. But yeah, we're here to play with friends. There's not a big gatekeeping thing between them. At least I hope not. We try to break that down every time we see it.
Yeah. It's every GM is a writer. So yeah.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's great. So is there anything, any closing thoughts? You've all the questions I had, and I really appreciate you sharing your experiences with us
Sure.
and our viewers. But any closing thoughts?
I'm just glad to see the AARPG, right? So
Yeah.
obviously older gamers. My big thing about this, one of the reasons I really wanted to push the emerging designer program, everything else we do with Marvel and such, is that about 10 years ago, I was looking around the hall and I'm like, man, there are not a lot of younger faces here, right? And it's important to bring younger people into it too as well, because otherwise we end up being like our grandfathers while these doing HO model railroading in the basement. They're like, oh yeah, you're over for Thanksgiving, but don't touch that stuff. Grandpa's in his game room right now, right? You don't want to end up that way. The hobby dies out if you do that.
Yeah.
You got to bring in fresh faces all the time. And it's such a fun thing. You're not bringing them, you're saying, hey, look at this cool stuff, but be open and welcoming every time you can.
I appreciate that's truer words have never been spoken. Maybe sometimes,
Yeah,
but
it's a good rank. You know?
yeah, it's up there. But thanks, Matt.
Hey,
I appreciate the time.
Fantastic.
And,
I appreciate it.
And I hope you have a great show. And
I'm sure
thanks to everybody for watching.
already am. So, there you go.